On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Priscilla Pointer, a celebrated American actress whose career gracefully spanned stage, film, and television, passed away of natural causes on April 30th, 2025, at the age of 100 in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Her peaceful death was emblematic of a life marked not by scandal or tragedy, but by dedication, longevity, and quiet artistic influence. It reflected a generational value of persistence, family ties, and craft, rather than celebrity culture or spectacle. Pointer belonged to an era when the performing arts were grounded in discipline and gradual mastery, not viral fame. Born in New York City in 1924, Pointer was immersed in the arts from an early age. Her parents were artists, and she married Jules Irving, a prominent theater director. Together they co-founded the San Francisco Actors Workshop, emphasizing progressive, ensemble-based productions that mirrored the post-war American push for intellectual and cultural renewal. Her career on screen flourished later in life, often playing maternal or nurturing figures, most notably in the film Carrie, 1976, where she appeared alongside her daughter Amy Irving, and in the TV drama Dallas. Pointer's death did not cause global upheaval or political turmoil, but it resonated deeply within the entertainment community. It marked the closing of a chapter tied to mid-century American theater and film. Tributes poured in from colleagues and fans, noting not only her roles, but her influence on future generations of actors, including her own children. While her passing did not shift history's course, it illuminated how quieter, steady contributions can build a lasting legacy, especially when rooted in artistic integrity and mentorship. In contemplating her life and death, we are reminded that humanity's relationship with mortality is not always centered on the dramatic or violent, but can also honor the graceful exits of those who devoted their lives to culture and connection. We immortalize figures like Pointer through retrospectives, preserved performances, and stories passed down within artistic families. Her longevity and elegance serve as a testament to how memory and influence can endure quietly but powerfully. Adolf Hitler, the dictator whose actions plunged the world into one of its deadliest conflicts, died by suicide on April 30th, 1945, in his Berlin bunker. As Soviet forces closed in on the German capital, Hitler chose death over capture. He shot himself while ingesting cyanide, alongside Eva Braun, his longtime companion whom he had married just one day prior. His death, though self-inflicted, was a violent end befitting the chaos and destruction he had unleashed across Europe during World War II. Hitler's suicide marked a definitive collapse of the Nazi regime. It symbolized not just the physical end of a dictator, but the unraveling of a totalitarian ideology built on racial hatred, militarism, and cult-like propaganda. His death, occurring beneath the ruined Reich Chancellery, reflected the total disintegration of the fascist dream he had championed. The Third Reich, which he once boasted would last 1,000 years, crumbled in 12. The immediate consequences were profound. Within days, Germany unconditionally surrendered, and the war in Europe came to an official end on May 8, 1945. However, Hitler's death did not instantly absolve the world of his legacy. Instead, it prompted urgent efforts to comprehend the scale of the Holocaust and the consequences of unchecked authoritarianism. Post-war tribunals at Nuremberg sought justice for crimes committed under his leadership, signaling a shift toward international accountability. Though Hitler's death did not amplify his legend in a heroic sense, it did cement his place as a cautionary figure in global history. He became a symbol not of martyrdom, but of destructive power, fanaticism, and moral collapse. The world, determined to never repeat such atrocities, found ways to remember. Through education, museums like Yad Vashem and the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, and countless works of literature and film that explore the war, genocide, and fascist ideology he personified. His death, and more importantly the horrors preceding it, underscore humanity's ongoing struggle with power, responsibility, and memory. While many historical figures are remembered with admiration, Hitler serves as a stark reminder of how memory can also serve as a warning. We immortalize such figures not to glorify, but to learn, to ensure the lessons of history guide us away from repeating its darkest chapters. Agnes Moorehead, best remembered for her role as the witty and flamboyant Endora on the television series Bewitched, passed away from uterine cancer on April 30, 1974, at the age of 73. Her death was natural, yet shrouded in controversy due to speculation linking it to her earlier participation in the 1956 film The Conqueror, which was filmed near nuclear test sites in Utah. Several cast and crew members from the production, including John Wayne and director Dick Powell, also later died of cancer, prompting decades of public concern and debate about radiation exposure and its long-term health effects. Moorehead's passing symbolized more than just the loss of a seasoned character actress. It brought attention to the silent dangers of the Cold War era's nuclear experimentation. Her death, along with others connected to the Conqueror, became a cautionary tale about the unseen costs of national defense and the lack of transparency during an era of heightened atomic testing. At a time when environmental and health activism were just gaining momentum in the 1970s, these deaths raised questions about governmental responsibility and public safety, concerns that continue to resonate today. Though Moorehead had a long and distinguished career on stage, radio, film, and television, it was her television role in Bewitched that cemented her legacy in pop culture. Her flamboyant portrayal of Endora became an icon of female autonomy and sharp wit during a decade when gender roles in American households were rapidly shifting. Her death then not only marked the end of a vibrant acting career, but also served as a poignant close to a chapter in television history when strong, unconventional female characters began to emerge in the mainstream. Today, Agnes Moorehead is remembered through retrospectives, reruns, and accolades that highlight her versatility and presence. Her story reflects humanity's dual relationship with memory, one that honors talent while also questioning the societal and environmental forces surrounding mortality. We immortalize her not only for her craft, but also through the ongoing discussions her death sparked about health, safety, and the unseen consequences of political decisions. Peter Mayhew, the towering actor beloved worldwide for his role as Chewbacca in the Star Wars franchise, passed away from a heart attack on April 30, 2019, at the age of 74. His death was natural, following years of health complications, including spinal surgery, that left him increasingly reliant on a wheelchair. Mayhew's passing marked not just the loss of a performer, but the symbolic departure of a beloved character whose wordless roars had become a universal language of loyalty, bravery, and warmth. Mayhew's Chewbacca debuted in Star Wars: A New Hope, an era when science fiction was gaining ground as both a storytelling medium and a reflection of global socio-political anxieties, from Cold War tensions to technological advances. The Wookiee warrior served as a unique emblem, physically intimidating, but emotionally tender, loyal to his friends and ideals. Mayhew, through his 7'3" frame and expressive physicality, imbued Chewbacca with soul, transforming what could have been a mere costume into a legend. His performance paralleled a growing societal appreciation for inclusivity and emotional depth in unlikely forms. The immediate consequence of Mayhew's death was an outpouring of grief from fans and colleagues. Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford offered heartfelt tributes, with Ford calling him a kind and gentle man, possessed of great dignity and noble character. Disney and Lucasfilm issued statements honoring Mayhew's legacy, and conventions around the world held tributes. His passing resonated deeply with a fan base that spans generations and cultures, reminding us of the power of cinema to forge lasting human connections. Mayhew's death, while not a turning point in history like that of political leaders or revolutionary icons, nevertheless amplified his legacy. In an age increasingly defined by nostalgia and transmedia storytelling, characters like Chewbacca endure through digital re-releases, fan art, and ongoing Star Wars productions. Mayhew's contribution to film history is immortalized not only on screen but also through charitable work, like the Peter Mayhew Foundation, which continues his legacy of compassion. His departure underscores how figures outside traditional seats of power, actors, artists, and cultural icons, shape our collective memory. We immortalize them through storytelling, shared fandoms, and the enduring emotional imprints they leave behind. Sergio Leone, the visionary Italian director who revolutionized the Western genre, died of a heart attack on April 30, 1989, at the age of 60 in Rome. His death, though natural, struck the film world like a sudden gunshot, abrupt, jarring, and far too soon. Known for crafting films that redefined cinematic language, Leone's passing symbolized the loss of one of cinema's boldest stylists at a time when the film industry was shifting toward high-concept blockbusters and away from the slow-burning, operatic intensity that he perfected. Leone came to international fame with his Dollars trilogy, A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, introducing a grittier, more morally complex vision of the American West. His films were marked by prolonged silences, extreme close-ups, wide landscapes, and haunting scores by his lifelong collaborator, Ennio Morricone. In doing so, he challenged Hollywood's polished myth of the cowboy, offering instead a world of dusty violence and existential ambiguity. His style mirrored a post-war Europe disillusioned with conventional narratives and eager to deconstruct American idealism. The immediate consequences of his death were felt deeply in cinematic circles. Though his output was relatively small, the influence of his work extended far beyond Italy. Filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, and Robert Rodriguez cited him as a key influence. At the time of his death, Leone had been planning a grand-scale war film titled Leningrad, which would have reunited him with Morricone and featured an international cast. Its cancellation marked a lost opportunity for cinema history. Leone's passing further amplified his legend. Once dismissed by some critics as merely stylish, his work began to receive deeper academic and critical reevaluation. His films are now regarded as masterpieces that bridge the gap between European art house and American genre cinema. He elevated the spaghetti western from pulp to poetry, giving new cinematic language to themes of greed, revenge, and redemption. Reflecting on Leone's death invites us to consider how mortality interacts with legacy. His work is immortalized through ongoing retrospectives, film studies curricula, and constant homage in contemporary cinema. His death reminds us that artistic power often outlives the artist, and that through images, sound, and myth, we continue to remember and reimagine the world they once envisioned. Muddy Waters, born McKinley Morganfield in 1913, died of natural causes on April 30, 1983, in Westmont, Illinois, at the age of 70. He succumbed to heart failure in his sleep, having suffered from declining health in his later years. His quiet passing stood in contrast to the electrifying, rebellious spirit he embodied on stage, a man whose music thundered with raw emotion and social undercurrent. Waters' death signified more than the loss of a blues legend. It marked the fading of a transformative era in American music and culture. Waters emerged from the Mississippi Delta and brought the blues to Chicago, fusing traditional acoustic roots with the power of electric amplification. At a time when African American musicians faced systemic racism and limited platforms, Waters became a cultural force. His music expressed the pain, perseverance, and pride of a generation, particularly in the Great Migration's aftermath, when Black Americans moved north seeking better lives. Songs like Hoochie Coochie Man and Mannish Boy were not just entertainment, they were declarations of identity and resilience. The immediate consequence of Waters' death was a deep sense of loss in the blues and rock communities. He had mentored and inspired artists such as Eric Clapton, the Rolling Stones, who named themselves after his song Rollin' Stone, and Led Zeppelin. His passing stirred retrospectives and tributes, emphasizing his foundational role in shaping rock and roll. In many ways, his death amplified his legend, solidifying his status not only as a bluesman, but as a bridge between musical generations and racial divides. Waters' legacy endures through countless honors. He was posthumously awarded a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1992, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and immortalized in documentaries and biographies. His influence resonates in music festivals, scholarly research, and the continued evolution of blues and rock genres. His death reminds us that cultural revolution can come through sound, and that the voices of marginalized communities, once amplified, can echo across centuries. In remembering Waters, we recognize how powerfully art can confront injustice, express identity, and inspire change. We immortalize him through recordings, tributes, and reverence. Each guitar riff a heartbeat, each lyric a monument to the man who made the blues roar. Naomi Judd, celebrated country music icon and matriarch of the Judd family, died by suicide on April 30, 2022, at the age of 76. Her death, ruled as a self-inflicted gunshot wound, came after a long and public battle with mental illness, particularly severe depression. The tragedy unfolded just one day before she and her daughter Wynonna were to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame as the Judds, a duo that defined an era of country music with their close harmonies and heartfelt lyrics. Naomi's death starkly reflected the ongoing challenge of mental health stigma, particularly among older generations and within communities often expected to uphold an image of strength and wholesomeness, such as the country music world. Despite decades of success, wealth, and acclaim, Naomi continued to suffer silently, a reminder that mental illness knows no boundaries of fame or fortune. Her openness in previous years about her struggles, including in her 2016 memoir, River of Time, helped break barriers for others, but her tragic end still stunned fans and peers alike. The immediate aftermath of her death was one of deep mourning across the music industry. The Judds' induction ceremony proceeded with Wynonna and her sister Ashley delivering a tearful tribute to their mother. The event became both a celebration and a reckoning, bringing the topic of mental health to the forefront of public discourse. Fellow artists, fans, and mental health advocates used the moment to emphasize the importance of support, awareness, and access to care. Naomi Judd's death amplified the complexities of her legacy. While remembered for her music, hits like Love Can Build a Bridge and Mama He's Crazy, her struggles and openness humanized her in a powerful way. She became a symbol of both vulnerability and resilience, challenging the notion that fame equates to peace or immunity from inner turmoil. We immortalize Naomi not only through her music, but also through growing efforts to destigmatize mental illness. Tributes poured in through concerts, social media, and mental health campaigns, Her legacy lives on in her daughters, in the hearts of her fans, and in a cultural shift toward compassion. Ben E. King, the iconic soul and R&B singer best known for his timeless ballad Stand By Me, died of natural causes on April 30th, 2015, at the age of 76. His death marked the end of a musical era, yet also sparked a renewed appreciation for his enduring influence on American music and cultural memory. As a performer whose work transcended racial and generational boundaries, King's passing prompted reflection not only on his music, but on the social transformations that shaped and were shaped by it. Born Benjamin Earl Nelson in 1938 in North Carolina, King rose to prominence in the late 1950s as a member of the Drifters, before embarking on a solo career. His 1961 single, Stand By Me, co-written with Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, became an anthem of solidarity and love, resonating across decades and social movements. The song's resurgence during the Civil Rights era, its revival in the 1986 film Stand By Me, and its continuous use in modern pop culture underscore King's wide-reaching legacy. King's death, while peaceful, occurred during a time when many of his musical contemporaries were also aging or passing away, prompting public reflection on the fading generation of soul pioneers. It reminded fans of the fragility of the human voice, particularly those voices that helped shape the American soundtrack during periods of change and upheaval. The immediate aftermath saw tributes from fellow artists, institutions like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and fans across the globe. Notably, his song Stand By Me spiked in streams and sales, reaffirming its cultural and emotional relevance. His passing amplified his legend, not by virtue of tragedy, but by reinforcing how enduring music can echo through generations. King's legacy is immortalized not only in his recordings, but through honors such as his induction into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame, and the continual use of his music in films, commercials, and global events. His voice has become a symbol of resilience and comfort, transcending the era he came from. In remembering Ben E. King, we confront the universal themes of mortality and memory. His death reminds us that while individuals pass, their art can achieve a kind of immortality, sounding out our shared humanity long after they're gone. Gordon Scott, best remembered for portraying Tarzan in the 1950s and early 1960s, died on April 30, 2007, at the age of 80 from complications following heart surgery. His death, while natural in medical terms, marked the quiet passing of one of the last figures from Hollywood's golden age of heroic, physically imposing screen icons. His career reflected mid-20th century cultural values that celebrated rugged masculinity, exotic adventure, and physical perfection, ideals deeply embedded in post-war American cinema. Born Gordon Merrill Worshkull in Oregon in 1926, Scott's entrance into Hollywood was serendipitous. A lifeguard with a powerful physique, he was spotted by a talent agent and cast as Tarzan in Tarzan's Hidden Jungle. He would go on to play the character 5 more times, transitioning from the monosyllabic Me Tarzan stereotype to a more articulate jungle hero. His portrayal bridged the era between the primal depictions of Johnny Weissmuller and the more narrative-driven storytelling of later decades. Scott's death did not dominate headlines, but within film and fan communities, it stirred a reflective nostalgia for an age of cinema defined by its simplicity and mythic storytelling. In an era increasingly obsessed with digital effects and anti-heroes, Scott's old-school heroism stood as a relic of more straightforward, if less nuanced, storytelling values. While his career waned in the 1960s, particularly after moving to Italy to star in sword and sandal epics, Scott remained a cult favorite. His Tarzan embodied a post-war optimism, a strong man with moral clarity navigating the wilderness with both force and grace. His passing served to highlight how film heroes evolve with cultural tastes and how audiences return to early archetypes in search of timeless ideals. Today, Gordon Scott is remembered through fan conventions, retrospectives, and DVD collections of his films. Though not a household name in the modern sense, his image remains etched in the lineage of cinematic Tarzans, influencing portrayals of adventure heroes even decades later. His death, while quiet, invites us to consider how cultural icons fade, not in significance but in visibility, until nostalgia calls them back. Through memory, film preservation, and fan dedication, Gordon Scott remains immortalized, swinging between trees in a black-and-white world that still captures the imagination. George Murdoch, a prolific American character actor best known for his work in film and television, died on April 30, 2012, at the age of 81. He passed away in Burbank, California, of complications related to cancer. An end that was natural, but quietly emblematic of the many unsung, steady contributors to the American entertainment landscape. Murdoch's death did not generate widespread headlines, but it marked the passing of a familiar face whose presence enriched some of the most iconic TV series and films of the late 20th century. Born in Salina, Kansas in 1930, Murdoch enjoyed a career that spanned 6 decades. His chameleon-like ability to portray a wide range of roles, from judges and doctors to villains and authority figures, made him a go-to character actor. He appeared in popular series such as Star Trek, The Next Generation, Battlestar Galactica, Barney Miller, and Law and Order, as well as films like Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, 1989, where he played God, or more precisely, an alien entity posing as God. Murdoch's death, though not met with mass public mourning, reflects the quiet dignity of actors who build legacies not through stardom, but through consistency, versatility, and a deep understanding of craft. In an era that increasingly values celebrity and viral fame, his passing underscores the enduring value of professionalism and reliability, traits celebrated in the classic television era from which he emerged. The immediate consequence of Murdoch's passing was largely felt within the industry and among dedicated fans of the franchises he contributed to. For the Star Trek fandom especially, his portrayal of the mysterious and authoritarian entity in The Final Frontier remains memorable and often discussed in conventions and retrospectives. His ability to embody both authority and ambiguity made his roles resonate longer than screen time might suggest. In reflecting on Murdoch's life and death, we're reminded that not all cultural figures are immortalized through grand monuments or best-selling biographies. Many are preserved through the roles they played in shaping the collective imagination, subtly, steadily, and sincerely. Figures like George Murdoch live on in syndication, streaming, and in the memories of audiences who recognize that not all legends need the spotlight to endure. Jean Ball, an American actress best remembered for her work in television during the 1950s and 1960s, passed away on April 30, 1996, at the age of 67. Her death was due to natural causes, specifically metastatic breast cancer, a disease that reflects the often silenced struggles many women faced in an era when health issues, especially those affecting women, were less openly discussed or prioritized in public discourse. Born in 1928, Jean Ball gained prominence through her performances in popular television shows such as Bonanza, Perry Mason, and Star Trek, where she notably played Nancy Crater in the show's very first aired episode, The Man Trap. This role ensured her a lasting place in sci-fi history, linking her legacy to one of the most influential television franchises of all time. Her poised, enigmatic presence suited the era's evolving female archetype, intelligent, composed, but often confined to roles defined by male narratives. The circumstances of her death did not cause public uproar, nor did they dramatically shift the cultural tide. Yet, they provide insight into the transient nature of fame in Hollywood, particularly for women. Despite her early acclaim and screen presence, Jeanne Ball, like many actresses of her time, experienced the slow fade into obscurity, an all-too-common reality shaped by ageism, gender expectations, and an industry constantly searching for the next face. Her passing was not marked by widespread media coverage, but among classic television fans and Star Trek enthusiasts, her contributions remain appreciated. As is often the case with character actors and early TV stars, their deaths prompt a retrospective appreciation, reigniting discussions about the foundational roles they played in shaping genres and series that still captivate audiences today. Jeanne Ball's death reminds us that history often forgets the quieter contributors to cultural change, particularly women who worked within restrictive systems. Yet, memory persists in fan forums, episode reruns, and the archival efforts that keep classic television alive. Through these mediums, we immortalize figures like Ball, not through grand memorials, but through continued viewership, appreciation, and acknowledgement of their roles in entertainment history. Jerry Fujikawa, a Japanese-American actor whose career spanned stage, film, and television, died of natural causes on April 30th, 1983, at the age of 66. His death came quietly, without the widespread media fanfare often reserved for Hollywood elites. Yet Fujikawa's life and passing encapsulate profound themes of resilience, representation, and the ongoing struggle for identity in 20th century America. Born Hatsuo Fujikawa in Monterey County, California, in 1912, Fujikawa's early life was marked by upheaval. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, he was one of over 100,000 Japanese Americans forcibly relocated to internment camps under Executive Order 9066. Later, he served in the U.S. Army's 442nd Regimental Combat Team, one of the most decorated units of World War II, despite the racial discrimination he and others faced at home. This contradiction between loyalty and exclusion defined the era and shaped Fujikawa's later roles, many of which subtly echoed the struggle for Asian American visibility in mainstream media. His death from natural causes reflected the reality for many minority actors of his generation, unsung contributors to the cultural fabric, whose legacies were not immediately recognized but later re-evaluated through the lens of social progress. Fujikawa was frequently cast in minor or stereotypical roles, yet he brought nuance and dignity to his characters. His most prominent television appearances include roles on MASH, The Andy Griffith Show, and Charlie's Angels. Although he rarely had leading roles, his steady presence helped chip away at Hollywood's monolithic portrayal of Asian characters. The immediate aftermath of his passing did not cause ripples in the entertainment industry. However, in recent decades, with growing interest in Asian American history and representation, his story has gained renewed relevance. Notably, his daughter, Cynthia Gates Fujikawa, honored him through her acclaimed one-woman play, Old Man River, which delves into his life, secrets, and sacrifices, an artistic tribute that humanized a man once overlooked by Hollywood. Fujikawa's story reveals the quieter legacy of those who persevere within oppressive systems. His death, while natural and unmarked by scandal, invites reflection on how we measure cultural impact, not by fame alone, but by the doors quietly opened for those who follow. Through familial tribute, documentary theater, and scholarly re-examinations, Fujikawa has been posthumously woven into the broader narrative of American identity.